Hey guys, it's Joel and welcome back to the channel. And welcome, interestingly, into my dad's BMW Z4. Now, like my Z4, my dad's Z4 is the E85 generation. However, unlike my Z4, this one has the 2.5 litre engine, whereas my one, as you all know, has the 3 litre engine. So today, given that I am driving my dad's 2.5, I thought it would be a good opportunity for me to get a sense of exactly what the differences are between the two engines. So if I could have it my way, I would make this video into a back-to-back comparison, meaning I literally drive this car or my car first and then immediately jump into the other one. However, the reason I'm actually driving this car in the first place is because this week my 3 litre is in the garage having some mechanical bits sorted to it. So unfortunately, I do not have access to both cars at the moment. And well, this is actually the first time I've driven my dad's car properly, because I'm normally not on the insurance for this car. I'm only borrowing it for the next few days whilst my car is in the garage. However, although I'm not able to drive them back to back like I mentioned, my 3 litre has been my daily driver for the past 3 years, so I'd like to think I have enough knowledge about how that car feels and drives and performs in order so that I can just jump in this one and immediately notice the differences. Before we get into the video, guys, please make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. We're very fast approaching 10,000 subscribers, and that is my milestone to hit. So if you can help me out and you're one of the 80% of people not subscribed watching the channel, please go ahead and hit that button now, and let's get to 10k. So, I think it makes sense to start with the differences with the cars, with the stats. So my 3 litre, and this is the pre-facelift, so I believe it's the M54 block, is 231 brake horsepower from factory. And this car, being the pre-facelift 2.5, is around 190 brake horsepower. So there's about 40 brake horsepower of difference there, and compared to mine, this is about 15% less powerful. So you would think it would be very noticeable. My initial thoughts on the way this thing performs compared to my 3 litre, I mean, the one word would be comparable. Although there is 15% of difference on paper, I really don't feel it too much. The only place I can feel it at the moment is at low RPMs in higher gears, so like 4th or 5th gear. So now in 4th gear at around 2000 RPM, 35 miles per hour, there's noticeably less torque, but only marginally. I think when you're at the top end, so you're going through 1st, 2nd, 3rd gear, to me, that feels pretty much identical to my Z4, the 3 litre. Now, I think on paper, my Z4 is meant to do 0 to 62 or 0 to 60 in 5.9 seconds, and this one closer to 7. But I don't see that being quite the case. Now, that might be because my Z4 in particular is very high mileage, and that is a video I would love to do at some point, to get that on a dyno and see how much brake horsepower my Z4 has lost over all the years and all of the miles. And it could be, you know, that mine is actually a little bit slower than most 3 litres. However, I'm just telling you how I'm seeing it. From just driving this car, I'm only really noticing 4th, 5th, and I was going to say 6th, but this doesn't have 6th gear, which we'll get onto in a second. I'm only noticing in 4th and 5th, really, the lack of torque, as opposed to the outright acceleration through the gears. So as I just touched on briefly then, this, being the 2.5, only has a 5-speed gearbox, which I'd say is a pretty big drawback and disadvantage compared to my 6-speed. For example, if you're on the motorway, as you would be in the United Kingdom, cruising at our speed limit of 70 miles per hour or around 115, 120 kmh, in 5th you're going to be touching on about just over 3,000 RPM. However, with my 6th gear in my Z4, it is just around 2.5 or just under 2,500 RPM, excuse me. So from a noise perspective at least, it's going to be a little bit more comfortable and quieter cruising in a 3 litre with a 6-speed than it is in this. And also there's an argument to be had that fuel economy would be ever so slightly better in the 3 litre. Now, this being my dad's car and me having the 3 litre as well, we've obviously had that conversation. And we have ascertained that I generally get better fuel economy in my 3 litre. That's based on when we're both driving sort of normally, and you know, when I'm not out ragging the car, and neither is Dad. I will average around 33, 34, and Dad more or less the same, but on longer runs I have been able to get in excess of 40, and I don't believe my dad has yet. So I think that 6th gear does really help with economy, but also, yeah, for extra comfort, it is quieter. Now, speaking of comfort, this car being a 2.5 isn't quite as a lower ride height as my car. And I looked at my VIN number the other day online and saw that my 3 litre was spec'd with the M Sport suspension from factory. I don't know if that's a standard thing for the 3s, but I'm pretty sure this 2.5 doesn't have that. And although the ride's still not a Rolls Royce, you feel all the same bumps, but they're just not quite as jarring. That's the best way for me to describe it. I also know that my dad doesn't have the ground clearance issue that my car does. Now, my car is on 17-inch wheels, which I think makes the ride height a little bit lower compared to most of them, which are on 18s. But yeah, this doesn't have the same ground clearance issues. My dad doesn't have to slow down for speed bumps like I do. But I would say overall the ride is just smoother. You do still feel everything, as I mentioned, but it's just not, yeah, it's not as hard hitting, it's not as jarring, is the best way for me to sort of describe it. As far as other things to talk about, I mean, that really is it in terms of the comparisons between the two engines, because when you're comparing engines, what you're looking at is economy, performance, comfort, things like that. We've touched on the suspension, and there are also obviously different trim levels with these Z4s and different factory options you can have. My dad's one, and I'm making full use of it today, has heated seats, which is a very nice thing I wish my Z4 had. Really something any convertible should have as standard, but it was an option, and unfortunately my 3 litre did not have that spec from factory. So this one's got heated seats. It's still got the same sport button that you find in the 3 litre and in the M's. And as far as other spec goes, well, this one has automatic wipers such as mine, but it doesn't have the automatic lights. This one also doesn't have the sat-nav specs, and it's got electric windows like mine, but it doesn't have the electric seats. But all of that sort of stuff has got nothing to do with the engine, and I keep trying to go for 6th gear, but it isn't there. That is probably my least favourite thing about the 2.5 as opposed to the 3 litre, is that lack of a 6th. Maybe because I'm just so used to driving it, but I think primarily because it just does make a little bit of difference when it comes to sound and economy. So then, if you are looking for a Z4, for an E85 Generation Z4, pre-facelift, because that's what we're talking about here today, and you can't decide whether you want to go for a 3 or a 2.5, firstly, I hope this video has helped, but in summary, I would say look for a 3 litre. Now, the reason my dad got a 2.5, as he has mentioned in previous videos, is for the ride height thing, and I think that is a difference, and this is slightly higher and allows him to just glance over speed bumps, and also it is a bit of a softer ride. However, for me, the slightly added torque and performance, which you're using day in, day out, although not that noticeable, you might as well go for a 3 litre, and of course you have that extra 6th gear. Now, if I'm not mistaken, last time I was checking these cars on Auto Trader, it doesn't really matter whether you go for a 2.5, a 3 litre, or even a 2.2 for that matter. They're all sort of very affordable these days and priced around the same sort of margin. So if there's a 2.5 that comes up in your dream spec and you just can't resist it, I would say go for it. Don't worry about not having the 3 litre, as long as you can live without a 6th gear. And I believe you can spec these or have these with a 6th, but don't take my word for it. But yeah, if you find the dream spec and it happens to be a 2.5, then go for it. I don't think you're really missing out on the 3 litres performance. However, if you're just starting out and looking, I'd go out and set out for a 3 litre, because it is just that little bit better. And of course, insurance is a thing. You might be thinking, well, the 3 litre is going to be too expensive, especially if you're a young driver. However, something that you guys may not know is that when I set out to buy a Z4 initially, I was only looking at the 2.2 and the 2.5 because of that very concern that my car insurance would be way too expensive, and in fact my policy, Admiral, wouldn't insure me on a 3 litre. That's what I thought. However, a 3 litre came up that I liked, and I thought, oh, I'll just do a quote and test the waters, have a little laugh, see how much this is going to cost. And to my surprise, the 3 litre was actually cheaper to insure than the 2.2, the 2.5, and even the 2 litre. And there's a whole bunch of reasons for that, which I won't go into now. But don't discount the 3 litre if you're setting out to buy one of these things. So I hope that's been interesting. I hope I've answered any of your questions that you might have had regarding the comparison between these two cars. Like I say, I wish I could have done a back-to-back comparison, because it would have been slightly more entertaining and perhaps a little bit more accurate. But honestly, I've driven that Z4, that 3 litre of mine, so much, over like 50,000 miles in 3 years, so I just know it like the back of my hand, and I can tell you just jumping into this what the differences are. But nonetheless, in the future, perhaps if you're screaming out for another video with this car, we can sort out some insurance again and make that happen if you've got any other dying questions. But otherwise, comment below anything you want to ask me now. Make sure you're subscribed if you're not already, and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, because for whatever reason that makes the videos perform better. So with that, I'm going to end the video there, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you very, very soon.